The Stasis subclasses that were introduced in Destiny 2's Beyond Light expansion gave players an entirely new way to deal with enemies. The Warlock's Shadebinder has been turning battlefields into ice since it released, but in the Season of the Chosen, it's getting even cooler. In today's video, we're going to break down a build that utilizes the Shadebinder's newest aspect, Bleak Watcher. Let's get started. The first and most obvious component of the build is the Bleak Watcher aspect. It allows you to charge your grenade and convert it to an autonomous stationary turret that fires low damage tracking stasis projectiles that slow and eventually freeze enemies. The turret lasts for about 35 seconds. The duration of the turret allows it to freeze dozens of enemies during its duration for phenomenal crowd control, and all the freezing allows you to follow up with shatters for solid AoE damage. For my second aspect, I'll be slotting Ice Flare bolts. Shattering a frozen enemy spawns 2 secret projectiles that freeze enemies on contact. This will improve our crowd control and AoE damage potential even more. With our aspects locked in, we can turn our attention to the fragments. These function like passive abilities. Whisper of Hedrons provides a damage buff to our weapons after freezing a target. With a 35-second turret created with Bleak Watcher, we'll be able to keep this buff running a lot, but it's actually possible to keep it up through 100% of your encounters. To achieve this, we'll need to lower our grenade cooldown so we can have a constant flow of shots from the Watcher. A high discipline stat on our armor coupled with a demolitionist weapon is a good start, but we can take things even further with the Firepower Charged with Light mod. This mod refunds a portion of our grenade cooldown when we use it. The effects of firepower can be stacked, and with 4 firepower mods equipped, we'll refund about 60% of our grenade's cooldown if we use it while charged with light. To gain those charges, I'll be using Charge Harvester. Kills or assists of any kind have a chance to charge us with light. And just like that, we've got the build put together. Bleak Watcher is the foundation. It creates a turret that can freeze enemies. Whisper of Hedrons gives us a damage buff when we freeze enemies, and the Firepower Charged with Light mod will help us reduce the cooldown of our grenade so we can keep our Watcher active whenever we're in combat. From here, we can add a few extra bits to punch things up even further. For my 2 remaining fragment slots, I have Whisper of Refractions. Defeating a slowed or frozen target reduces the cooldown of my class ability, and Whisper of Fissures. Shatters have a larger radius and do more damage. For the rest of my armor, on my class item, I like to slot 2 Bomber mods to reduce the cooldown of my grenade whenever I activate my class ability, and on my gloves, I have the Void mod Bolstering Detonation to reduce the cooldown of my class ability whenever my grenade or Watcher damages an enemy. Okay, now that's a lot of stuff, but don't worry, we're gonna head into the field and break these things down even farther. So let's get out there. Before we dive into the testing, I want to give a special shout out to all of my patrons: Algino, Avi, Dennis, Evipen, Hotaru, Jay, Ronan the Ronin, and Wade. Thank you for your continued support. It is frickin' awesome. And anyone else who has ever been a patron in the past, thank you as well. And I appreciate every single one of you guys. Now let's get back into the video. Alright, we're going to start things off by heading to the K1 Revelation Lost Sector on the moon to showcase our setup in an environment where my head is not going to get taken off of my body from the enemies that we're fighting. This setup has a lot of different mechanics at play, so it does feel a little bit dense to talk about, but it doesn't feel difficult to execute, and that's something that I've been enjoying about it a lot. It's a good mixture of crowd control and support. We're going to get a lot of rift cooldown reduction, and of course we're getting a tremendous amount of grenade cooldown reduction as well. So we're going to go in and start things off the right way by charging up our grenade and throwing it out to spawn the Bleak Watcher. I'm just going to call it the turret from now on. Now when I activate my rift, that is going to trigger the bomber effect. And when I destroy frozen enemies, that's going to trigger the Whisper of Refraction to reduce the cooldown of my rift even further. So we can use that rift to get another turret. Throw it out farther down the line to continue pushing forward and freezing more and more enemies. And you saw there that I had a stack of Charge with Light on my last grenade throw, so the firepower effect triggered and the grenade cooldown was reduced massively because I have 4 firepowers equipped. So we threw that Bleak Watcher down below us so it could get a head start on freezing some guys for us. And we've got another one up already. We're charged with light. We're going to see that big return as well as this next group of enemies comes out. Now, one of the downsides to the turret is that it does fire a little bit slowly, So it is something that you have to set up, and you have to wait for the setup time. But once it's set up, it's active for about 35 seconds, and that's a very good amount of time. It's going to help you in more difficult environments where enemies take longer to kill. It's just going to be your battle buddy, essentially. So let's continue pushing forward. We'll throw down another turret. We'll put up a rift to get that bomber effect. Kill that guy. Demolitionist giving us some cooldown reduction as well. Now we've got 2 turrets up and at him, and the freezing potential is insane. And again, the bolstering detonation and whisper of refractions working together incredibly well to reduce the cooldown of our rift, so we can play a very effective supporting role as well. And that's something I've always enjoyed doing with the Warlock, especially with the Attunement of Grace. But now I feel like I can play the Stasis Warlock in a supporting manner as well, but it feels very different because I'm focused more on a mixture of crowd control and healing as opposed to just pure healing from healing grenades and things like that on the Attunement of Grace. It's really nice. And something that I haven't even mentioned that's been working for us in the background is the damage buff that I have active pretty much 100% of the time from freezing enemies. The Whisper of Hedrons fragment. The last thing we're going to do in this lost sector is deal with the boss enemy with our turrets. And something interesting about the stasis freeze effect is that while it doesn't immobilize bosses, it can still apply the freeze and eventually trigger a shatter effect once enough damage is done. So we are going to get some additional damage just by having our turrets out and active while fighting the boss for this area. So as soon as he comes out, bring out the second one. Now you'll see that shatter damage is doing 5,130 damage every time it activates, and our turrets are continuously shooting at him to reapply the effect. And the turrets are also activating the bolstering detonation effect, so that's nice too. But you'll see he's not immobilized by it, he's just getting the additional damage from the shatter effect. Alright, time for part 2. We are going to head into the Exodus Garden 2A Legend Lost Sector. Its recommended power is 1300. We've got champions in the environment as well as a couple of other modifiers. It's going to be tough, but it's a great opportunity for us to show off the immense crowd control potential that we have, as well as the destructive power. The shatter damage is very respectable with stasis, so we're going to be doing good damage. We have great crowd control and good support for ourselves with the healing rifts. So let's get in there. Alright, here we go. This first room has a servitor and some shanks in it. I'm not going to bother putting up any turrets to start things off, but once we've cleared out this first room, this is where we can start having some fun with the turrets. We'll send one out and then put our rift down immediately and start taking out enemies. Go ahead and freeze them for me, buddy. There we go. When we kill a frozen enemy, it's going to spawn out the ice flare bolts, and that's going to cause even more freezing action. Barrier servitor coming out of that room, so we're going to throw another turret down. And I'm going to put a rift down as well. Once the barrier servitor is frozen, he can no longer apply his shielding effect to his surrounding shanks, so that's really nice. And it seems like the freeze will actually keep him frozen long enough so that he can't even activate his barrier, so that's a nice interaction there. We've got an overload champion up ahead, but we've also got a lot of rank and file enemies to deal with. So I'm going to concentrate on them first while the turret is going to keep the champion frozen. I'm not going to send out a second watcher just yet. I'm just going to let the first one run its course. And then once it's done, we'll do that. And get rid of the champion. We are hustling our way through this Legend Lost sector right now. Let's get that reload on our gun. We got field prep on there, so it reloads very quickly while I'm crouched. This next encounter, a lot of enemies are going to try and push through these rooms, but the turret is going to freeze them up for me. And we've got another one, so we can actually push it even farther ahead. So we've got a turret behind us that will deal with enemies that push really aggressively. And then we've got the turret up in the room that's working on the more forward-facing threats for us. Alright, he's keeping that champion on lockdown for me. We got a barrier servitor in the back. Let's throw another watcher out there to keep him locked down. Oh, let's go hide for a second. Oh yeah, okay. Hold on, I need to retreat. We need to retreat for just a second. I do have the glacier grenade equipped, though you wouldn't know it because I don't use it very often, because I'm using my grenade mostly for the turrets. But it is nice to have a versatile grenade that I can use for cover, so I feel like a pseudo titan sometimes. So that was fun. But right now I am caught without a grenade, but a couple of kills from Demolitionist is all I need to get it back, and then we can continue doing what we do best, and that is keeping guys locked down. I definitely want to freeze the barrier servitor wherever it is, because he is constantly shielding enemies and making it very difficult to deal with them. Oh crap! Now, one thing I do wish that was a little different about the turret is I wish I could control where it would shoot, because right now you'll see it's not shooting exactly what I want it to shoot. I wanted to shoot the barrier servitor, it's just kind of doing its own thing, shooting everywhere else. But in the end, it is still going to get the job done. Alright, but now that we've eliminated all of the guard units around the barrier servitor, he's very easy to take care of. Alright, now we got a bunch more red bars just filing at it. Let's just throw the grenade normal. Alright. And there we go. We did it. We did it. We did it. We did it. Give me the chest. Give me the chest. Give me the chest. Goodbye. Alright, good enough. It's fine. We don't have to kill the boss with Bleak Watchers. We can use our super for that. It's fine. We got a platinum score. We got an enhancement core. No exotics from it. But that's fine. We did it. We did it. We beat a legendary lost sector with a really, really fun and powerful build. We died once, but that was my own fault. I was getting a little sloppy. The last thing that we can do to showcase one more environment for our setup is head into the Nightfall Ordeal. This week it is the Arms Dealer, which is my personal favorite Nightfall in the game. This one, it's tough. The Arms Dealer, it can be tough to solo, but I do feel confident in the capabilities of our setup, so we should be fine. So let's go ahead and launch this up at the Legend difficulty. We've got to deal with Match Game and a couple of other modifiers. This time there's going to be Unstoppable and Barrier Champions. So I've switched my bow back to the Pulse Rifle that you saw me using at the start of the video. Let's get into it. I'm going to put that first one over there. Keep my Rift up. And then we just start fighting from cover. I am getting shot with some snipers right now, so I should probably deal with those guys. The Watcher is doing great things. We'll activate another Rift for the cooldown reduction. We're going to throw this one pretty deep. I'm going to have to deal with this guy over here. The Bleak Watcher is doing work, even though I am nowhere near him. It is still doing what it needs to do, freezing enemies. And then once we are actually ready to deal with them, we can do so. I'm going to use the melee because this guy is pushing up very aggressively. Oh crap, bad time to have to reload. Let's just move back to cover. And one more should do him in. We got some more Cabal dropping in. Activate my Rift for Bomber. We'll send out another turret. We've got 2 of them on the field right now. And we can just pew-pew the enemies. Gonna reload. Now I'm gonna save my grenade for the next encounter, because the rest of these guys aren't particularly difficult to deal with. There we go. So this next area, a bunch of dogs are going to start coming out of this little hole, and a barrier champion drops in. So we'll activate the turret and the rift. I'm not going to worry about the bomb right now. And hopefully the turret's at a good angle to where it can freeze the guy. Yes, it can. He's going to jump down anyway. I'll send the second one. Why not? Let's have some fun. Let's see if he'll stay stun locked. If I can just pew-pew him with my primary. What's really nice about the freeze into shatter is that enemies usually flinch a little bit when they shatter, so they don't get to activate their abilities instantly. Unfortunately, he did get to put up his barrier, so I am going to have to deal with him in the traditional way, but that's totally fine. My Ariana's Vow was ready for me. So there we go, man. That's going to do it for the build. There are some awkward interactions that exist between Overload champions and Unstoppable champions and the Stasis freeze effect. A lot of times when you apply a freeze to a champion, an Overload champion or an Unstoppable champion after disrupting their abilities, they'll regain their ability back while they're frozen. So an Overload champion will continue to heal while it's frozen, and an Unstoppable champion will have its damage resistance while it's frozen. That can be a little bit annoying. However, you can still use the freeze effect to control them, and there are plenty of instances where it's going to be valuable for you to just keep a champion locked down for a little while you deal with all of his cronies and all of the side enemies, and it works incredibly well against barrier champions. There's no funky interactions that happen there. But in general, this setup is phenomenal. It's something I'm going to use all the time. And there are ways you can customize it because of the way Stasis works. If you're not interested in having Whisper of Fissures for the extra shatter damage, you can switch it for a lot of different options that are all valuable and viable. Something that I've been considering is Whisper of Chains. While you're near frozen targets or a friendly Stasis crystal, you take reduced damage from targets. So instead of going for the double turret setup, we can throw down a Glacier Grenade and get the trigger from Firepower for the cooldown reduction, and then our next grenade will be for the turret. So we've got a defensive structure that we create, and that's giving us damage reduction, and then our turret is going to provide crowd control, and then all of the other same things are going to apply. All the cooldown reduction from Demolitionist and bolstering detonation on our gloves, and then we've got Whisper of Refractions reducing our class ability. So all the other same things come into play, but when we add that Whisper of Chains, we've got another defensive option, and we can create cover for ourselves as well as damage reduction. One thing that I will say is mandatory for the build though is Whisper of Hedrons. The extra damage that you get from the 100% uptime of your turret is completely invaluable, and it's going to make higher difficulty content, legend and above, feel a lot smoother. When you're gunning down enemies with your primary and it's got that extra, I believe it's 20% damage added on top of it, feels really nice. So with all of that said, if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to support the channel more than you already do just by watching, liking, subscribing, and commenting, you can head over to patreon.com/iBluairJgR to become a patron. Patreon subscribers get access to bonus behind-the-scenes videos where I talk about my creative process for making videos like what you saw today. As always, the name of the game is Destiny 2, the name of the channel is iBluairJgR. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.